Welcome to Primetime, everybody. I'm your host, Hunter Chambliss, and tonight we are ranking all 13 Scream killers. I am super excited. I'm joined by my co-host, Chad and Kerri. How's it going, guys?
Going great.
It's going great. I'm excited for this. We all love Scream, but you heard it right. 13 because of Scream 6. So, and we'll get to it when we get to it about why it's 13 and
Instead of 12,
not
trust
14,
me.
not 12. So
Yeah, we didn't do our math wrong. Trust me, we got this taken care of. Kerri, how's it going?
Going great. Excited to rank these killers.
I am too. So yes, we have 13 killers that we all rank from 13 to 1. And this is how it works. We will each go around and give our 13s and then go all the way down to our number ones. But if somebody says a killer who is on someone's top 5, then we will say, hey, it's in my top 5, and we'll talk about them later when we get down there. All right.
All right.
And then at the end, we will do a some sort of math situation where we will then come up with our ultimate 13 list. So, Kerri, why don't you kick us off with your number 13?
Sure. My number 13 is Jason Carvey.
Wow. Okay. Any reason why?
We can, if you guys want to say your 13s, and then we can kind of go through and talk about it.
sure.
Okay.
My 13 is Charlie Walker.
And my 13 is Ethan Landry.
Okay.
All right.
No top 5s here.
Nope.
We can talk about these 3 now, I think, right?
Yeah.
Talk about them. Yeah. And so Kerri can start, but this is the reason why we have 13.
Yeah.
It's because Jason Carvey, spoiler for if you haven't seen Scream 6, opens up the film. And Kerri, why'd you rank him last?
Yeah, I ranked him last because he is basically in the title sequence of the movie. He is. It was really cool to have a double opening kill, and to have him be the killer of the first kill, and then we reveal who's behind the mask. Obviously, something that Scream has never done in the history of its franchise. But he was one and done, and the mystery of that movie isn't about him. So I don't know. For me, it's he's the killer who gets killed very early on within the first 10 minutes of the movie. So just not making it quite up top for me.
Yeah, Jason is an interesting character because the way Scream 6 opens, it's kind of nuanced. We haven't really seen an opening like that for a Scream movie, especially to see a killer pop up and then it ends up not being the actual killer. But we're just like we're thrown through for a loop, right? Seeing this killer take off his mask and like, are we gonna know who the killer is the whole movie? Like, what is this? And then you finally see them die, and then you go, no, okay, this is something completely different. This is interesting. I have Jason Carvey at number 10. I initially had him at 13 just because of the same exact thing Kerri said, and then I was like, you know what? I feel like that whole opening sequence, he's just a good. If he would have lived to the end of the movie, like I feel like he's a really good ghost face. The way he entices Samara Weaving into the alley and talking to her like that. It's just like it just felt like he was a good ghost face in the brief time that he was Ghostface, even though you can argue that he's not really a ghost face. He's just a dumb student. But I mean, everyone's not really a ghost face until they're Ghostface. So I feel like he was a legitimate ghost face. He was one of the 4 spoiler alert for Scream 6, 4 ghost faces in Scream 6. And and it's fun that it's Tony Revolori. He's a cool guy from what I've heard. And in a lot of really great stuff. He's a good actor. And it was fun that he was like his motivations had nothing to do with anything except for being a disgruntled film student. So it's just kind of fun that way.
Yep. And to finish up Richie's movie. Don't worry
Yeah.
about that. So I had Jason. At first I had him at 10, and then I moved him up to 11. Just talking about it, I do love the uniqueness of this opening and the fact of like it subverts your expectation because everyone expected after the great line of "Now I see something red," which is a great Ghostface line, by the way, and the title card. But no, he takes his mask off, and that was brilliant because we've never seen that before. Always adding something different to the opening sequences. I also love the fact that it doesn't just like he unmasks and then another title card. We get to stay with him a little bit longer, and then it's a anticipating. We see his house with nice little Easter eggs, galore, and then he gets a call from Ghostface, and then he's the real opening kill. I like how it kind of subverts your expectations not once but twice as it goes along. But yeah, he's not the main focus. He doesn't get a lot of storylines. There's really no reason why he's killing somebody. So he is higher up, but he's not over, dead last for me.
Yeah, and it's cool to see that he was like friends with Tara and just
Yeah,
talking about. I don't know. It just added a creepy element
Yeah.
to that movie.
yeah.
Yeah, so we can move on to Charlie. I picked Charlie Walker just because of the two in Scream
Mhm.
4. I just feel like he's kind of like the Randy replacement, and he's fun and when he's talking about like movies and stuff like that. But like ultimately, I don't know. It just like he just feels like the weird like guy that like his whole only motivation was because like Kirby, he had a crush on Kirby or whatever. I don't know.
Mhm.
It's just like every single time I'm just almost like,
Mhm.
if there's any time where you wanted to have kind of like one killer in a movie, I feel like that one killer in that movie could have just been alone by herself easily. But it is fun to see like him get betrayed and stuff like that. But and I like all 13 of these
Yeah.
killers. I'm not trashing Charlie or anything like that. I like Rory Culkin and stuff. I think he's good. It's just I'm like I like the other ones more. So
Yeah. Kerri, thoughts on Charlie?
Yeah, so Charlie's actually my number 11, so he's not much higher for me. I agree with what Chad said, and I definitely feel like Charlie is probably one of the most like sidekicky of the killers. Like
Hmm.
Jill is such a great killer,
yeah.
and she's really the focus of that movie and like the kills in that movie. So Charlie kind of, it's almost a really short time period also between his reveal as the killer and when Jill kills him.
Hmm.
So, uh, yeah, he's just a little lower down for me. Although I do think his reveal is always really cool.
Yeah.
Where like Kirby thinks she saved him, and like actually he stabs her.
That is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It,
because
it
of Hayden's acting.
Yeah.
acting. Yeah. And what's cool about that reveal is that it's not like, oh, the grand ghost face reveal out of the mask. It's literally just one quick motion of like, boom. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, a big sequence of like, oh, maybe he's safe. And then, damn it, he literally twists the knife in her side.
Yeah, as
Yeah.
soon as he like gets up from the chair, he's like, "Oh, by the way, stab."
Hmm.
The only other thing too about Charlie that every single time like has gotten weaker for me with Scream 4. Like I really like Scream 4, but this one part is when they're going through the rules. Their one big rule is to survive it, you pretty much need to be
Have to
gay.
be gay. Yeah.
When did that become a horror trope? What are you talking about? What movie did that happen in?
Yeah. That's always a weird rule to me. But
Yeah.
I mean, I will say it did give probably the biggest laugh of Scream 4.
I'm
Wait,
gay.
wait, wait, I'm gay. I'm gay.
Yeah.
So yes, my number 13 is oh wait, Charlie Rocker, sorry.
Yeah.
Charlie is my number 12. I
Okay.
just I don't really like his motivation
Yeah.
of like, all right, so you couldn't get with Kirby, so now you're gonna just become a killer. And again, he felt like an afterthought throughout the entire movie. Like even before he was a killer, he just kind of sat in the background, didn't really do anything. And that's to me, you have to have some characters that are just in the background, but I feel like we should show more time with someone who's going to be the killer. That way you can prep somebody and then who they are. I didn't really get what Charlie's character was besides movie fan, and
Mhm.
we've kind of seen those killers before in previous movies, so it's I don't know, it's kind of up in the air, but he's just like one below my number 13.
Yeah. I will say one quick thing though.
Mhm.
I wish I had a stabathon. I want to go to
Dude,
a
Yeah.
stabathon.
me too.
Let's start one, okay? We'll do the
Screamathon.
well Nerd Entertainment Network's Welcome to Prime Times yearly annual
it's just, so,
uh,
it's just
brought to you by
it's
Welcome to
like
Prime Time.
it's like 30 words deep.
Yeah.
Just keep adding words to it.
How many sponsors? No, there's no sponsors.
There's no sponsors here. Trust me, we don't have enough room.
It's a long
Uh,
marquee.
long building. So yeah, my number 13 is Ethan Landry. He just again like Charlie when he like revealed himself, I was like, uh, okay, like okay, I liked that there's three killers, but they kind of like told you he was the killer, so I wasn't really surprised. I was just like, okay, like it's the obvious, new character. One of them is gonna be Ghostface type thing. Um, he wasn't bad. He was just kind of not memorable to me, so that's why he's 13 over Charlie, who does have a lot of like redeeming qualities. Like, he has some good lines. He has some good like interactions with Kirby. Ethan just didn't really fit in the core four for me. He felt like an outsider, and that's because he was the killer.
Yeah, I had Ethan as number 12, so not much higher at all. And I agree with everything you said, Hunter. It's he was kind of one of the most obvious choices in that movie, just because during that sequence in the apartment, he's like one of the very few characters that you don't see in it.
Mhm.
So very much leaves him open to be Ghostface. And I think the only time you think, well, maybe he might not be Ghostface is that he like gets Mindy off of the train and like seems like he's trying to help her. But yeah, it wasn't, the big part of that. I think the other two killers in Scream 6 are so much more surprising. And, the great reveal of it is like, who they are collectively and that there's three killers. And like he just doesn't stand out as much.
I actually think that's a really good point, is because like since there's three of them, and the fact that I really like that there was three of them. I think it's a really cool twist because you're like not two, three. It's like really interesting for a movie, like kind of upping the stakes and stuff like that. And then you have three threats to deal with now. Good luck. Well, I guess you kind of need that if you have two main Sydney protagonists. So you need three killers, I guess. But yeah, I have Ethan at 12 as well, and I initially had him a little bit higher. And then I thought about it. The reason I had it higher is because this one's hard for me. Like I really like Jack Champion, and I want to see
Yeah.
him like have like a really great career. I mean, he's already going to be in I don't know how many Avatar movies because he's Spider in Avatar 2.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Yeah, so he's going to be in a lot more of them because I think he's going to be a very big character in that franchise. Obviously, spoiler again, he's not alive after Scream 6 unless they retcon it or do something. But I'm pretty sure
Ghost.
he's pretty dead. But yeah, I'd like to see him in more stuff. So for me, like I like seeing him in the movie, even though I didn't know he was Spider at the time. I just went like, he looks so familiar. I like that guy. And I just like, I didn't know if I wanted him to be the killer or not. And then I was like kind of on the fence about it because I was like, are they making it too obvious or are they trying it so obvious that he is going to end up being it? And that's kind of how Scream works a lot of the times. Like it could just be so obvious that it is it, because then they're like, well, they're going to think it's not because it's so obvious and all this stuff. So, so yeah, I think he was kind of an interesting fake out there. But sorry, I have to close off these things.
Cool.
He was an interesting fake out there, but like, yeah, out of the three, I just like sat there and I was like, you know what? I think he is the third. He is the least interesting one of the three.
Mm-hmm.
just being like Chad's roommate and a virgin, and that's like pretty much all we know about him. So yeah, I ranked him 12 as
I
well.
will say though,
I like him.
Ethan does have a really great line where he tells Tara, "I've always wanted to stick something in you."
Yeah,
And by the way, such a virgin line if I've ever heard one.
Yeah.
yeah,
I love that she gets him back.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, the knife down
There
the
you
throat.
go.
Like hell of a final kill though. I'll tell you that.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think we're on to going to our 12s, but I think two of them were already
I
mentioned.
think we actually said all our 12s, but we can go around just to say, what it was.
Mine was Ethan.
Mine was Charlie. And
Yeah,
then,
mine was Ethan as
All
well.
right, let's go on to our 11s.
Yeah.
I
Go
already
ahead.
said mine, which was Jason.
Okay. My 11, or Kerri, go to your 11.
My 11 was Charlie, who we already
Okay.
talked
And
about.
mine was Quinn.
Okay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and
start?
talk
Yeah.
about Quinn since we're on it. We just talked about Ethan. Quinn is interesting. Like I do really really like female ghost face killers because I just think they're really interesting. And I don't know, when you look at like just serial killers in general, there's not a lot of women serial killers, and to see a lot of these great actresses come out and like be threatening like that, I just think is so cool, so fun, because you normally don't see that. And I mean, horror is full of just final girls. Like they're normally the good people. Just to see them as the killers is just a lot of fun. Quinn is probably is well, no, not probably, definitely my lowest ranked woman Ghostface. But I do think she's really fun. I think she brings like a little bit of like an energy that reminds me of other women Ghostface and some of the other male ones as well. So I definitely ranked her above Ethan here, but still below her dad, because I do think he's the most interesting one out of the thruple there. And yeah, I don't know. She was very menacing when she was coming at them from the balcony side of things and stuff like that. And it was cool to see like her kind of subvert it. She wasn't that interesting of a character, before that, but all of that stuff was like built up to be like a big fake out, with her being like the sex positive,
I love that line, by the way.
and stuff like that. But yeah, she's interesting. But I just ranked her 11. I like other ones more.
Kerri?
Yeah, she wasn't much higher for me. She was at 10. And yeah, I agree with everything Chad said. She's, 10 over the 3 I have lower because I do think her reveal was really cool. I was convinced that she was dead in that, up until, she is revealed. So I did think that was really cool. But yeah, also for me, her dad outranks her. I think he is like the more interesting and prominent killer in Scream 6. And she is kind of there at the end, and not particularly, I guess, like crazy badass or like I don't know, it's mostly like her reveal is really cool.
Yeah. So I also had Quinn at 10 on my list. She is somebody, again, I rank these killers based on how they were like pre reveal and then after reveal. I think after reveal she gets so much better because
Yeah.
she's able to be more free. She's able to show what she can do and really show her craziness. But beforehand she doesn't really have an impact on the rest of the movie like some other people do. She has some great lines like was it Mindy calling her the slut of the group and she goes sex positive. I think that's great great line. I do question how her father faked her death, but I'm not really going to get too deep into it because
Yeah.
I can enjoy a Scream movie without looking too deep into it. But overall I think the reveal was great. she also went out really fast. She was just like one shot to the head, and that was it. Like we didn't really get a final fight like we got with Ethan and with Wayne. So it just kind of feels like they didn't really know what to do with her character after the reveal, and they just kind of got rid of her.
Yeah, I mean, it was cool just to see, since we've already talked about them, to see like, Tara hanging, Sam above, and then you see Quinn coming
Yeah, just on the side.
Ethan's
Yeah,
below, and you're just like the two taking on the two.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and you brought up a good point, I think, where it's just interesting to talk about like the before and the after the reveal, because
Mhm.
it's like interesting to see, because there's kind of like two types of ghost faces, and they're ones that are like very different, and then after the reveal, they're like, yeah, I'm the killer.
yeah.
And then there's some that are like the same,
Yeah.
both
Completely.
ways,
Yeah,
except when they're revealed, they just turn it up slightly.
yeah.
So
Exactly. All right, so I did my 10 already. Quinn, Kerri's was also Quinn, correct? At 10.
Yeah, my
Yep.
10 was also Quinn.
my 10 was Jason. We already
Okay.
talked about him. So we can move on to 9.
Yeah.
Number 9. Kerri, do you want to start?
Yeah. My number 9 is Roman.
My number 9 is also Roman.
Oh my God.
My number 9 is also Roman.
Honestly, guys, I thought I had ranked him higher than you guys would have, because I know people like kind of trash on Roman a little bit.
Mhm.
Since I'm talking about, can I just keep going? real
Yeah,
quick?
yeah.
Okay. Roman's interesting because I know that like the whole screenplay thing is like it was supposed to be 2, and then they just wrote it down to 1, and killer, and so it's the only movie that only has one Ghostface killer, and a lot of people question like whether he could have done everything that he did in that movie, and then still like do the whole fake out death thing in the cooler, and controversy with like voice changers and stuff like that. I don't know. I do think because there's all the mystery and it's like it ends up being just the one guy, I think his kind of like OP kind of like power level of being a ghost face just kind of makes him good. And I do like Scott Foley in the role, and I think he does a good job with the before and the after as just like struggling director, and then things aren't going his way kind of a deal, and then the reveal and him doing all the stuff with Sydney and like I was behind it all, and kind of like the one guy, a Sandman from Spider-Man 3, but yeah. My biggest problem is just kind of like how they handle his character, and that's where when Sydney and Roman he's dying, and she holds his hand and stuff, and then he dies. I kind of like that moment where she kind of like forgives him even though he's crazy, and then they bring him back and he does like die and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and Shad, Dewey head, kind of a deal. But I feel like the second part, even though it's kind of like Scream tradition to do, kind of like undercuts the other part.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't think that's like Scott Foley or Roman's like fault. It's just he's how one friend, I'll just name him Henry, told me one time, he had an interesting take where it was like Sydney's the caring side of the coin and he's the chaotic crazy, because it's like a brother and sister kind of like dynamic there. So I think he is pretty interesting character if you really think about it, and like you want to like defend Scream 3 and stuff like that, which I often do because people do not talk about that one fondly, and I think it's not bad. But yeah, it's fun that we all ranked him at 9 though.
Kerri?
Yeah. So for me, Roman's number 9, I think for a lot of the same reasons. He's lower ranked because there are some believability issues with him having done the whole thing, like timeline wise, when you watch the movie. But that said, he's up above some of the other killers because he did pull off the whole thing on his own. So that's pretty crazy.
And even Kirby mentions it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
for him.
Yeah.
Kudos to him. Yeah.
But there's also, the storyline in 3, where he's Sydney's brother and his motivation, and he's the one who kind of inspired Billy and Stu or Billy to kill Maureen and everything.
Which I like the idea of him like inspiring him, but they say that he like basically helps
Show them.
shows him how.
Showed him the video of his father cheating.
But I feel like doesn't he like teach him how to do it or something like that?
I can't remember how deep they get into
Well,
it.
If that's true,
I know he
don't
said
like
something
that.
about he told Billy, or he taught Billy to have a fall guy, and that's why Billy picked Stu.
Oh,
as his
okay.
fall
But
guy.
that's not that bad then. Yeah.
Yeah. So that I have a fondness for it for like I think nostalgia reasons, but it's also a little bit like retconny, and I don't know. So that's why he's kind of a little bit more middle of the pack, lower middle of the pack for me.
Yeah, so for me, Roman's at number 9 because at one point he was my like least favorite killer, only because like I didn't like the retcon. I didn't like the fact that in Scream 1, the great thing about it is you could look at it as, all right, Billy didn't have a reason why, but if you wanted a reason, he found out his mom was cheating. I don't like the fact that in the third one they're like, oh, the guy you've never heard of is now like it feels like Halloween when they started to do the Cult of Thorns, and you realize that the Cult of Thorns is behind everything, and you're like, I didn't like that. The reason why I liked Michael Myers was because he didn't have this code, and it's like I don't like when you mess with something that was perfect. It didn't really need a motivation, but they have that underlining one of, oh, that's why he has mother issues, and that's why it's not, oh, this guy you never heard of just secretly pushed him to it.
Yeah.
But as I continuously watch Scream 3, I start to like it more and more because there are great moments in it. But to me, it's also about, again, the post-killer and pre-killer thing. Pre-killer, Roman is a nobody character. He barely has screen time with Sydney, so they don't have that connection. Sid is confused as to who the fuck this guy is, to where he has to say what his name is to her. And it's just like, I wish we had more screen time with Scott Foley as Roman, because I think he does a great job, especially when he's revealed as the killer and you get that kind of crazy side out of him. But he just felt like he did nothing throughout the movie except like get arrested or get questioned by the police because of an incident. And
Dude, there's no way you would have gotten more screen time with Scott Foley not as Ghostface. He was too fucking busy in that movie.
And yeah, again, believability. How the fuck am I going to believe that he killed 10 people while trying to direct a movie, while handling all the backstage stuff, while getting arrested, without having some sort of help?
Agree.
It's like it's too much. Like if Scream 4, if Scream 3 had like fewer killers, like maybe murderers, like maybe he just killed like 5 people, maybe. But no, there's 10 kills in that movie.
It's one of the higher kill movies.
It is in the Scream franchise, and it's one person.
Yeah.
But briefly, are you gonna edit this one? What's going on with the pizza?
It's done.
Do you want to?
We can wait.
Are the cats gonna get?
We
to
can
it?
see if they're gonna go up there.
All right. If they're gonna interrupt, but okay. All right, you can cut around that or just keep it in.
No, it's fine. I'll cut it out. All right, are we good?
Yeah. So we're going on to number 8.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Hunter.
So my number 8 is Nancy Loomis, Mrs. Loomis.
All right, that's top 5 for me.
Okay, sweet.
It's top 5 for Kerri. So we'll wait on Mrs. Loomis. And then what's your 8?
My 8 is Detective Bailey.
Okay.
Okay.
That's not top 5 for me. My 8 is Richie.
top 5 for me.
I figured.
Also for me.
I figured. All right, and then yeah. So now we're going to sevens.
No, we can talk about Detective Bailey.
Oh,
'Cause he's
Bailey,
not in
you're
anyone's top
correct.
Yeah.
five.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
All right.
I
Uh,
can. Oh, if someone else wants to start.
either way,
Okay,
I
I'll
mean,
start. So yeah, he's my number 8. Like I said, I think he is like of the 3 killers in 6, he is like the coolest one. I really liked how like they, I think, cast an actor, a stunt person playing Ghostface in a lot of the scenes who had that physicality of an older man. Like you could kind of tell, and I was like, oh, it's an older man. I think Chad had kind of put in the idea in my head that it could be Stu. So it was like very believable when he is revealed to be the killer. And I did think like it was set up really well for like it's like you to believe it would be Kirby instead. And that he was the good guy, but he's the one who's lying about whether it's Kirby. So I thought that was really cool. Yeah, definitely like one of the more surprising of the 3. Overall, just a little bit lower ranked, and maybe he'll go up in my book at some point. But a lot of the classic killers just are so incredible, and it's hard to beat them. That he is still in that lower group for me. And I think part of it too is I think the strength of 6 is like the 3 of them together, and it's almost hard to rank them separately. Whereas in a lot of the other movies, I think the killers stand out more as individuals.
okay. Chad?
Yeah. I have. I wrote it just as Wayne. I have Wayne Bailey at 7. So not much higher, but just a little higher. Yeah, I think out of the 3, he's the most interesting in that movie. I liked him as the cop character before. I like the little bit of hints that he gives with the little bit of overacting he does, and you're just like, wait a second, who is this guy? Kind of a deal. But I just still didn't think that he could be the killer for some reason. But apparently, a lot of other people that I've heard from, are like, yeah, I called him like right away. I'm like, well, I must be dumb then because I didn't. But as soon as he was revealed, I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I love his. When he turns the dial to 11, and he's just like crazy as hell. He does remind me of Mrs. Loomis. I mean, it's kind of a sequel to the requel, kind of a remake of Scream 2 a little bit there. So a lot of similarities, which definitely makes me like him more. Obviously, I said Mrs. Loomis is the top 5 for me. Yeah, I really like his before and his after is so good that I think he could end up at some point making it into my top 5 because I don't know, I think it was just so incredible. But since it's so new, it's one of those where it's like, I'm not gonna jump the gun just yet. I need to rewatch Scream 6 a couple more times, maybe, and yeah. But he could end up being one of the great all-time Scream killers, I think. Down the road, I really liked him. I just thought that performance was good, and his motivation made a ton of sense. Very similar to Mrs. Loomis's motivation, but it still worked for me. And yeah, and I really dug him a lot. So yeah, 7 for now.
Yeah, so I have Bailey at number 6, right
Oh
outside my
my,
top 5. Um, I just think everything they did with him is not only believable, but also like I liked his character post and pre Ghostface because it's like you can see the stuff he does in the movie of like, him saying like, if I find out who did this to my kid, I'll kill him. And now
that was
going
that
back to it,
overacting point. Yeah,
yeah, you realize, oh, he's talking about, Richie, but at that moment you're like, oh, he's talking about Quinn, which is what a cop would say if he found his, someone killed his daughter. So it's believable. But
yeah.
also, I love the fact that every time you see him, in the mask, he's not only imposing, but he's using those detective like skills that he has, to full effect. He is more brutal. Like he's the one behind the bodega scene.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So he's more violent. He's brutal. He's using that cop, the training of a cop, but now he's being a ghost face, which is another thing we never seen before. He is different because he's someone in law enforcement who has that training to be an actual killer.
And he probably knew exactly what the police response time would be.
Mm-hmm.
So he could do all of that and get away with
Yeah.
it.
Yep, exactly. So I just think there was a lot that um, he did right. The only thing I would say is he's like reason why he had him in my top five is because I've only seen Scream Six once. I gotta rewatch it more to see where he lands for me, but I have no doubt that he's probably gonna end up in my top five eventually.
Yeah, and the cool thing too is we can do another one of these, in a year's time after 7 comes out.
Yeah.
Maybe even before 7, we can
Mhm.
do a quick one and be like, all right, where does we have what we had?
What do we
And
have now?
where does it rank now? Kind of a deal.
Yeah.
See if it's changed, or if it hasn't, then we just won't do the ranking again. We're just gonna
Which
know it's
I,
pretty much
which I am curious on a rewatch if Ethan is better for me.
Same.
Yeah.
Or like Quinn, I wonder if she's better for me on a rewatch. Just because I've only seen it once, so I'm going based on what I saw the first time and not what
Yeah.
I've seen, multiple times before.
Which is still impressive that even though we have only seen it once, Wayne still ranks kind of higher for a lot of us.
Yeah, exactly.
That good.
All right, so we're going on to, is it 7?
Yeah.
All right, we'll start with 7.
I mean, mine's already been mentioned. It was Wayne Bailey.
All right, Kerri?
Mine is Amber.
Top 5 for me.
Top
Okay.
5, yes.
And my number 7 is Joe Roberts.
Top 5.
Okay, makes sense.
We said that at the same exact time.
That's great. All right, so yeah, we said top 5 for all
both.
our
Yep.
7. So let's move on to number 6, which mine was Wayne Bailey.
Mine is Nikki.
Top 5.
Which is interesting because mine is also Mickey. As
Oh.
much as I love Scream 2, I was sitting there going through and I was like, he is end up just going to be outside of my top 5. Like, I love Scream 2 so much, but yeah. I
Interesting.
can keep going if you want.
Well, we should do our top 5.
I was just going to say we should talk about Mickey right now, or no?
We'll wait till Hunter says where Mickey's on.
Good point.
Yeah. All right, so number 5 for me is Amber Freeman.
Okay. So, and what's my number 5 is Richie.
My number 5 is also Amber.
Okay. So we have 2 for Amber, and then we have Richie for Kerri. Funny enough, both from Scream 5.
Yeah. So I think we could do Amber first, and then maybe Richie.
Chad, you want to start with talking about Amber?
Sure. I've been very vocal about my feelings of Scream 2022. It's raised a little bit the last time I watched it, but not much. It's not like much higher for me. But I think the strength of it is Act 3. And
welcome to Act 3.
How the hell do you know it's Act 3? Oh, because Amber tells you it's Act 3.
Yeah.
And I think initially when I started to get on my I actually don't really like Scream 5 all that much. After my initial hype and it started to go down for me, I convinced myself that Amber was annoying. And I was like, she's annoying. And then I was like gonna rewatch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and be like, maybe I just don't like this actress. And then rewatching it again, as soon as she had that turn and she kills Liv, and then she's like, welcome to Act 3. I turned to Kerri and I was like, I love that. Like, she's amazing. And I think the way that I start to like Scream 5 more is because she's in it, because she's kind of elevating it. I do like her. She's not trying to think. Like she's not super crazy throughout, but you can kind of see, I think, glimmers of it a little bit. And I think she is a good straight man, where she's just like, not crazy, not and I think she plays that level really well.
Mhm.
And then as soon as she cranks it up, I think it's like perfect. And she's just so crazy. Holy shit. And yeah, right. Just think like, when she does all of that, like it reminds me of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, how she is in that.
Mhm.
And I just think she does that kind of character so well. And I
Mhm.
kind of just want to see her in more shit. I just want to keep seeing that actress a lot. And yeah, for me, she just kind of makes that movie. Like I think without her, the movie's a lot worse. Just
Wow.
potentially, because I like a lot of the other things in the movie,
Mhm.
but for me, I think she's the strongest aspect of it. Even though I've been vocal that I have an issue with her and Dewey's fight, and I'm like, know if I buy it. That aside, just
Mhm.
everything in Act 3, I just think is so incredible with her. Um, when she just turns it on, and it's just beautiful to watch. So yeah.
Kerri?
Yeah, I have Amber slightly lower at number 7, but I agree. I think she is a fantastic killer. I would say it I put her a little lower because in my history of watching the Scream franchise, like the first time through where you don't know who the
Mhm.
killer is, she is the only one where I've really guessed it very early on.
Mm.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and I'll say I think it's kind of cool the way, like, I don't think it was obvious. I mostly guessed it because there's a scene where she, has a bruise.
Mm.
And then I think as soon as the party scene starts, I knew that was Stu's house, and
Mhm.
that's her
Mhm.
house. So I'm like, she has to be in on it. Um,
Yeah.
but I also really love that they took it back to Stu's house and then like incorporated that into her motivation.
Mhm.
I guess generally I don't actually love Amber and Richie's motivation. Like it still doesn't sell me as much as some of the other motivations of some of the other killers, but
Mhm.
I do agree she is just so phenomenal in that third act. Like it's so incredible, and that's why she is like, I guess that's why she's kind of in the middle for me. But
Yeah.
she is really incredible in that third act.
And I think the other reason why I was like, you know what, I love Amber is just because she reminds me so much of Stu.
Yeah.
I'm just like, all right,
Yeah.
she's obviously the sidekick, but like I mean, she's more of like a threat, I think, than Stu
Mhm.
ultimately. But like, anyways.
Yeah, because Amber actually feels like she orchestrated all this shit and she's crazy enough to actually pull through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she has a lot of great lines. So
Yeah.
Oh, dude, fucking hand sanitizer. I laugh every time, man.
right.
Yeah, so I have Amber at number 5. Uh, everyone knows how much I love Scream 5. That hasn't changed. I will say the only reason I have her at 5 and not any lower or higher, I mean, is because again, the pre and post thing. I think before she's revealed as Ghostface, she's there and she does what she has to do to plant seeds, but she doesn't overdo it, or she doesn't have memorable lines or like scenes until the third act. And the third act is amazing, but I think there are some killers in my top 4 that are great and have like great lines all the way through the movie and including the third act of the film.
Nice.
All right. So should we talk about
Richie, I think.
Richie?
Yeah.
All right, let's go with Richie now.
All right. So who had Richie at lower? Was it
Chad.
I
Chad?
have Richie at 8.
All right. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Richie. Chad, you want to start?
Sure, I can start with this one too. Yeah, Richie. I don't know. I mean, I like Richie. I like uh, Jack
Jack Quaid.
Quaid. I like him as an actor. I like him in this role. I like his motivation. I don't know. I like a lot about him. Um, but I think just like for me, I think like, and this is kind of will be the same when we talk about Mrs. Loomis and Mickey. I just think like, the power of Amber. I think he just gets overshadowed a lot in the killer dynamic between the two, and also it just feels so weird to see him get stabbed that many times. And then he's like, what about what about my ending? I'm like, you wouldn't be able to talk, I don't think, if you were stabbed that many
There's a
goddamn.
lot of that in the Scream franchise, though, so I let it slide.
No, I guess that's true. You're right, but I don't know. It just adds to it where I'm just like, what?
Like, I mean, Billy got stabbed through the chest with an umbrella and was still like alive. So
Yeah.
But anyways, that one's just always kind of been a little weird to me, just to see it like all in the same
yeah,
thing, though. I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, how is he still talking? But no, I don't know. There's a lot of things I like with Richie. It's just weird. I don't know. I ranked him lower because I like a lot more. I don't know. It's weird. I love so much about this franchise. Even things that I really like, I'm like middle.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Kerri?
Yeah. Richie's in my top 5. He's my number 5. I say I rank him actually a little bit before Amber because I definitely did not suspect him at all.
The boyfriend's like
but up until I thought it was so cool, and especially on rewatches, how much this is a parallel to the first Scream. And I knew he would like the thing that it's only like a fraction of a second before the reveal, but I knew he's the killer when I think it's either I think it's Sam gives him the gun or maybe Nev Campbell.
Cindy gives him the gun.
Cindy gives him the gun, and I was like, oh, it's him.
Yeah.
Just because of the way she gave Billy the gun in the first one. I was like, oh, this is brilliant. And then he turns, I think, like a second or two later.
Didn't she say like, why won't come out or something?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause you're shooting at me.
So I just thought that was really, really cool. It was so surprising to me, and I thought just for the Scream 2022, it was a good way to bring it back to that original Scream, to have it be the boyfriend again.
I do think with like a rewatch, like a lot of these could change.
And
it's so weird.
I do like that he's like so, I guess, lovable in the first.
Yeah, the first half.
And then
I know it really sucks that it's me.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So that's why I don't know. I like him a little bit more than Amber, and enough to be in my top 5.
With the rewatch, I probably would raise him higher, just because I do also love the thing where he's like, why is it so bad? This is about love.
It's about love.
Yeah, we love this stuff.
His favorite, like he says, how can fandom be toxic? It's about love.
Yeah. Exactly.
So here comes my hot take. Richie's my number 2.
Oh wow!
All right,
He's my number 2.
I mean, for you, that doesn't seem like a hot take, to be honest. But yeah, okay. Maybe for
Richie over Amber.
I guess that's true. For to maybe for also like viewers of the show who don't know how Hunter feels, and go Richie at 2. It's like,
yeah. So Richie to me is somebody who, again, the curve before and after the Ghostface kill is perfect for me, because he's somebody who has great lines, great scenes leading up to the third act, and then his reveal is great because it's sudden. He does everything right, where it's like, oh, obviously he's the boyfriend, but he's so likable, he's so nice, and he's so like charismatic before the killer reveal that you're like, I really hope it's not him. I like Richie as a character. He's got lines early on, like watching Stab on Netflix when he's sitting in the hospital, that are hilarious. And then he's got great lines in Act 3 where, he's talking about stabbing Sam in the side. And he's like, yeah, I know it sucks. It sucks as me, but it's a great ending for my movie. Which is so good. And then he's downright terrifying when he stabs Cindy. He goes, where the fuck you're going, Prescott? So he's got that great mix of great comedy chops, charismatic, but also fucking terrifying because Jack Quaid is a tall motherfucker, and he looks like he could be an intimidating ghost face. So to me, he's got everything that makes a perfect Ghostface killer.
Hell yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
I love that. My 8-year too, it's cool. But yeah, I like him a lot as well. But it's just so weird. I'm baffled that I have him that low, but I'm looking at it and I'm like,
Where else would
I
you
don't
put him?
know.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love I will say my top 8 is like my favorite shit. So,
yeah, yeah. I'll say that as well. So we're on what, number 4 now?
Yeah.
So I guess I'll start with mine. My number 4 is Mickey Altieri.
that was my 6, was Mickey. Go ahead, what's your 4?
My number 4 is Mrs. Loomis.
That's also my number 4 is Mrs. Loomis.
All right, that's my number 8.
Okay,
Yeah, number
so we should talk about, I think, Mickey and then Mrs. Loomis.
Make it a Scream 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are.
Maybe. These days, there's got to be a sequel.
There's got to be a sequel these days,
So, all right. Who wants to start? Okay.
I'll start.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
So Mickey's my number 4 because again, I love just Timothy Olyphant in this movie, like all the way through. When he's revealed as the killer, he's hilarious, and even beforehand, he has great lines about trying to up Randy with the sequel talk, which is hilarious. Like he brings up The Godfather 2 has a huge hard on for Cameron, like we all know that, and he brings so much like
the freaky Tarantino
kid. Yeah. He's got so many great lines, and I think what's great is he's one of the Ghostface killers that to me plants the seeds of doubt on everybody else. It's not him, and then he's revealed to be the killer. And I like that because even talking to Sid, he's like, it is weird that Derek over here just only got a scratch on the arm,
right?
And he's planting seeds in not only Sid's mind, but the audience's mind of like, oh yeah, that is weird. Like, what happened there? And then the ending reveal where he has a great line of Derek is the type of guy that you would bring home to mom if you had a mom. He overacts so much, but it's so entertaining, man. Yes. I love Mickey in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. I had Mickey at 6, which surprises the fuck out of me because as much as a Scream 2 stan as I am, there's been times that I went like, is Scream 2 my favorite?
Wow.
It's so close to the first one in my eyes. 96, 97, Scream 1, Scream 2. It's just like one of the best like 1-2 punches, I think, in horror and just cinema for me. Just I love those 2 movies so much. Easy back-to-back watch that I just love. So yeah, my my ranking kind of will reveal that a little bit, but like Mickey I put just outside of my top 5 because I wanted to put Amber a little bit higher because I think she's so incredible in that movie. And then I'm just sitting there like, and we'll talk about Mrs. Loomis, but I don't know. It feels like, she also kind of overshadows him a little bit in the movie with just how, I don't know, because he's so crazy, but I feel like he's like obvious crazy and she's like intense crazy. But yeah, I also love his like, I'm gonna put on trial and blame
the motivation is great for Mickey.
It's gonna be sweet. I just love like all of his lines too. Yeah, he's just so fantastic. I honestly, it's like him and Amber are kind of tied for me these days. So I could just easily see them both riding at that 5 spot, but because of how it is, I just swapped them real quick. I put him at 6. But yeah, I adore him as well. I think Timothy Olyphant's just a great actor in general. Also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is interesting that he's
he is. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, he's an actor in the movie that Leo is in. Yeah, he's on the horse riding. Anyways.
Oh, right.
Okay, so Mickey's in that movie as well. But yeah, no, you're completely correct, Hunter. Everything you said, he's so great and I love him, and I wish he was in my top 5, but I didn't put him in my top 5.
Mm-hmm.
I
Kerri?
love him.
Yeah, very similar here. He's just out of my top 5 at number 6.
Mm-hmm.
Like you guys said, just his lines and the way he delivers them, it is so iconic.
Yeah.
Like, I don't. It's just like one of the things I love about the Scream franchise, and I also think he's like, you know, one of the more believable people who, when
Mm-hmm.
like he turns and he kind of starts shouting and going crazy, yeah, you kind of like see it, and
Yep.
it's very believable. So yeah, that's why for me he's number 6. I wish I could say higher, but it's you know, there's so many great killers in this franchise.
Yes.
There are, yeah. So now we can talk about Mrs. Loomis.
Yes.
Loomis.
Yep. So that was my number 8, and your guys' number 4, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So I'll start with this one. I have Mrs. Loomis at 8, slightly above or below. I'm sorry, Mickey, only because I think her reveal is great, and I think it's a perfect tie-in to the first one. When she's Debbie Salt, she doesn't do much for me to be like, oh, that's a memorable killer. Like with Mickey, there are lines that he has before and after, you know, he's revealed as the killer that stay in my mind more than Mrs. Loomis throughout the entire movie of Scream 2, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's my number 4, and I put her just a couple slots above Mickey. I like you said, Hunter, I love this reveal. I love that Mickey's like, oh, I'm bringing in the second killer, and at first it's like Gail pops out, but then it's Debbie Salt. What? And then it's revealed that she's Billy's mother, and it's a classic
Mrs.
revenge
Loomis.
motive. And she's fucking crazy the whole time. And Sydney's like, man, I see where Billy
Billy's
gets it now.
mother.
Yes. I mean, and I think that like one of the things I actually think that makes the pair of them so strong is that they do, I don't know, they're just so iconic, each of them on their own. Mrs. Loomis a little bit more so because she does have that great revenge motive, and she is the one who kills Mickey. You know, she's like the more dominant
There's not
killer.
going to be a trial.
Yeah.
Mickey.
Oh man, I just love both of them so much. It's so talking about, like, I just love that whole ending sequence.
Yeah, Mrs. Loomis, I adore. I think she's kind of like a perfect, you know, kind of, because they're always like calling back to like old horror films, and this is kind of like, you know, Friday the 13th with Mrs. Voorhees.
Yep.
Kind of a deal, like the scorned mother, like she's pissed off that somebody messed with her kid, you know. So, you know, at some point, you know, maybe we'll see Kerri's a serial killer if anybody messes with our kid.
That will happen.
Hopefully nothing will happen though, but
let's hope.
let's hope. Let's hope Kerri never becomes a serial killer. But you never know.
It's always the nice ones. It's always the nice ones.
Yeah, like Debbie Salt.
Yep.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying, Hunter, and I see where you're coming from 100%. And I think that's what makes Mickey and Debbie Salt different, but I don't, for me, it doesn't make Debbie Salt like the worst.
Oh, yeah, not at all.
Of the two, because I think it's interesting where in the first movie, the two killers were there the whole time. They're right in front of your face, hiding in plain sight a lot of the time, stuff like that. With her, she is hiding in plain sight too, but it's like she's peppered in. And I think that's very interesting to have in your sequel, the killer that you don't
see coming
is just like one that's peppered in. And I think, you know, and I did this in a debate where I talked about like Cotton Weary being like one of the best, or no, the best red herring in the Scream franchise. And it's because he's also peppered in throughout, and he's always doing something weird. So he's kind of like drawing attention away from like someone like Debbie Salt and stuff like that. So I think he makes Debbie Salt's reveal like stronger, because why would you expect that random reporter? Like you saw report. What if
Yeah.
Linda Blair had been
Yeah,
the killer?
exactly.
That would have been amazing.
You think it's just a little
Noxious
cameo
reporter.
role though, like like oh cool, they got Laurie Metcalf to
Yeah.
And that is, and what Kerri just said is why I think this works for me so well, is because Laurie Metcalf is just fantastic.
Hmm.
You watch her in like Lady Bird and Roseanne. She's just
So good in Lady Bird, man.
she's such a great actress,
Yeah.
and she plays the mother scorned so well, defending like her eyes, just like
You killed my son.
wide and like just like angry and so angry.
Yeah.
It's just like she's so fierce and threatening and just
Mhm.
like I wouldn't want to be in Sydney's shoes at that point against
No,
her. And
not at all.
she kills Mickey, and she like uses a serial killer, gets him off of the web, a psychopath, and
Yep.
just kills him. And I don't even she's more of like a sociopath. Like
Mhm.
she got that way because of her son.
Yeah.
So you totally understand her motivation. Yeah, and she's a great actress in that role. And just for me, it just sells it every time. And yeah, she's just a very strong one.
Yeah. So I also know the comments are going to be like, "How dare I put Wayne Bailey over Mrs. Loomis?"
Yeah.
One reason, Bailey feels believable as the killer. I never bought Mrs. Loomis as a killer, only because I think Mickey did most of the killing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think Wayne Bailey did more of the killings in Scream 6. I think Mickey did more of the killing in Scream 2. So I think the only kill that Mrs. Loomis has was Randy.
Yeah, potentially. But also, like, I think really, like, her only goal was to kill Sydney, so it didn't really matter. And she obviously didn't succeed in doing that, but yeah, I think she's just so crazy that I don't know. Yeah, she just works for me big time. But
yeah, definitely. All right, so we move on to number 3, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Kerri, you want to start with your number 3?
Yeah, my number 3 is Jill Roberts.
That was my number 7. Chad?
My number 3 is also Jill Roberts.
All right, let's talk about Jill Roberts then.
Well, what's your number 3, Hunter?
Ooh, here comes the second part of the hot take. My number 3 is Billy Loomis.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, so yes, we can talk about Jill Roberts first, and then we'll get into Billy for my number 3. Yeah. Kerri, do you want to start with Jill first?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start with Jill. So I don't know. I just love this movie, number 4, her as the killer. She is just so batshit insane when she turns.
Mm-hmm.
And I think she is kind of believable as, just a regular high schooler, living her life throughout the, until she's revealed as the killer. Mm-hmm. And then once she's revealed as, I don't know, I love her motivation, like, that she wants to do it for the fame. She wants to be the only survivor and get that popularity. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just love, and I love how far she takes it. She just kills everyone else. She kills her mom. She kills everyone else. Once she realizes that Sydney's still alive, she goes and she tries to kill Sydney. She's trying to kill
Michael freaking Myers.
Yeah. And I think she just has like some of the best lines, especially after she's revealed as the killer. That whole sequence where she's injuring herself is like,
it's iconic, man.
It's difficult to watch.
When I was watching Scream 4 again, I stopped right before she dives into the coffee table, and I was like, "Kerri, watch this with me." I love this part when she dives into the coffee table.
Yeah. Swan dives.
So I'll always just love how far she takes it, and I don't know. I think she is just one of the best killers.
Chad?
Yeah, Scream 4 is a very interesting movie just in general for me, because I really like it, but then I also can see like the negatives to it and all that stuff. But I do think Jill and like that, all that stuff and stuff with Sydney is all very strong. And I just, I love her insanity, but like she's also just kind of like the perfect, like, let me see if I'm using this word correct, antithesis of Sydney, where she's like, it's because Sydney never wanted the fame, but she got it anyways. She got the fame and the whatever,
Yeah, and
and she's
Jill
always
wants the fame.
and when Cotton's trying to get her, let's use this, let's make something
Mhm.
out of this, and she's like, no, like this is terrible. I don't want to anything like that. And yes, Jill is because you look at it as 2011 Scream 4. This is almost like what Radio Silence was doing, kind of like a semi like reboot
Yep.
of the thing with Emma Roberts as the new Sydney. Um, and you can almost see Kirby as like a Tatum and all that stuff. And so, seeing her like that, but then she turns into the villain is just so incredible. And yeah, seeing that she wants the fame, she's jealous of Sydney, and she's like, this is the new way of doing things. It's like not the 90s anymore, and this is how you don't want friends, you want fans, kind
I
of a
love
deal.
that line.
And
Oh, it's so good.
yeah, and she has like a perfect, like everything planned out, perfect like motivation, perfect how
He's
she's
framing Charlie because Charlie has the videos on his phone.
framing Charlie, all that stuff. And yeah, just like Kerri was saying, like you could see her being just an innocent victim. So the fact that they find her and she's all like, ugh, I'm like, did you need to dive into the coffee table? Probably not, but she did it anyways. And it's like,
Make it believable.
Yeah.
Make it
like
believable.
go so far, do it for the fine. And
Yeah. Not the fine.
yeah. And then she basically yeah, like Kerri said, just goes so far. Even when she's in the hospital, like she said, goes after Sydney. I just love when like they're talking about it, like I think Sydney's gonna pull through, and then she's like, "Oh, okay," and then like she like gets that like pulls down the covers, like I gotta go do this shit now. Like I'm like foil my plan, and just everything with that so threatening, with the gun and all that stuff. Like I talk about, like it's Amber versus Dewey, kind of feels weird, but like Jill. She is so threatening in this movie that I'm like, she could take out anyone. Like she's just so like great and like powerful, and and also I somewhat wonder if Emma Roberts, like in real life, is a little bit crazy, so that I think that plays into the role and the fact that she has the same last name as her character. She's both crazy, so I don't. I just think she's so great, and I love her in that movie.
Yeah, so I have Jill at number 7. I love Jill. I think she's one of the better killers, recent killers, I should say. Um, the only reason I have her so low at 7 is because, again, she doesn't really do much until the end of the movie, and that's when she gets really great. She has some great iconic scenes, but I wish they had had her do more throughout the movie, beginning to middle. That way we could kind of connect with her character more, and then the turn happens. I think that would have been better. I just didn't really feel connected to Jill as a character until she became the killer.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, so number 3, yeah, from my number 3 was Billy Loomis. Surprisingly enough, that was the 1-2 hot take I had.
Yeah.
To me, Billy is iconic, and I'm not gonna take that away from him. I love Skeet Ulrich. Again, what's great about Screaming is that it tells you, hey, this is the killer, and then it actually is the killer. And that's what's great. But as I rewatch it, he doesn't really do a lot for me in the middle. Again, he doesn't do a lot for me in the middle. There are some great scenes, but in the end, he really turns it on his head. That's when you get to see the who Billy Loomis really is, the horror movie fan, the revenge seeker, everything like that. And that's what's great. Again, he's got great moments, but I just feel like Richie did a lot more of me caring about the character of Richie earlier on, and then revealing that he's the killer and turning that knife deeper to where I don't want it to be Richie. I knew it could be Billy, so I was preparing myself to, okay, it could be him. Like that was okay. I never really guessed Richie, which I know a lot of people say, oh, it was obvious. I didn't really see it, So when that twist happened, it hit me more deeply than when Billy was revealed as the killer.
I also think like just going like kind of piggybacking off of like what you were just talking about. Like I also think it's interesting because even with like me and Kerri, we didn't get into Scream like right when it was first coming out. So I
Mhm.
think we kind of knew a little bit of like who might be the killers like when we first like got into it. Maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I did either, but I just think also like when you kind of maybe know certain things about specific movies, like maybe you've seen a meme or something like that. Let me pause because
Okay, yeah, it's cool.
I gotta go grab my charger
I
before
think
this
it's
dies.
just right there.
Is it right over here?
I think so.
All right, sorry.
Yeah. It's funny like how someone from Scream 6 appeared so high on like both of our lists. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what I'm talking about, though, is like if because like with Richie, you got to experience it like all like
Brand
right then
new.
and there when brand new when it was happening. So
Mhm.
maybe it worked better for you in there, and maybe you just kind of like maybe forgot the first time you watched the
And that
first
was
Scream.
also like the first time I saw a Scream movie in theaters, so I had that experience as well. So
Exactly. So, but I'm not saying that Billy just didn't work for you because of that, or as far as
mhm.
like less than Richie, but
Yeah.
like maybe that could have played into it. But I
Mhm.
think like I don't know. I think Billy works so well as the killer
Yeah.
for many different reasons. And if you've been keeping track of my like ranking so far, I mean, I'm being basic here with my ranking. My 1 and 2 are going to be Billy and Stu, but like,
Nothing basic about it. I mean, that's
where do
yeah.
they rank? I have Billy at 2. Um,
Wow. Okay. Sweet.
and yeah, but for me, it's this is a 1A 1B situation.
Mhm.
It's like they're both tied for me, Stu and Billy. We'll get to Stu at some point soon. But Billy, yeah, he is iconic. But I just think like rewatching Scream 2, I'm just like, especially like thinking about like red herrings and stuff like that for doing like debate and stuff. I was looking through it and I was just like, he is such a could it be him? Like he
Yeah.
feels very obvious, but then it also like he doesn't. Like he feels like he could just be like the boyfriend that's trying too hard to
Mhm.
have sex with Sydney and stuff like that, and it just feels like kind of like a typical like problematic boyfriend who's just like cool it down, kind of a deal. I mean, he does a little bit when it's like, would you settle for PG-13
13.
and stuff like that? But all the like little things like the cell phone, the jail phone call,
Mhm.
him getting stabbed, just everything is so iconic. But yeah, the turn with him, I adore where when he comes in. So it and the other thing too, when I look at it, like with Skeet Ulrich's acting,
Mhm.
if you look at The Craft, you watch that. Nev Campbell and Skeet Ulrich are both in The Craft. And
Really?
so Hunter, if you haven't seen The Craft, I think you would love The Craft.
I
I
need to
just
watch The
have to say that
Craft.
because it's pretty scary and
Mhm.
crazy and awesome. It's a great horror movie. Um, but yeah, I won't say what happens, but like he is so not Billy Loomis in The Craft. He is like completely the opposite of that. And Nev Campbell, I won't say is like not Sydney Prescott, but she's more threatening in
Mhm.
The Craft. She's like a witch, and she's not like the most threatening one. That's Firuza Balk. But
Ooh.
but yeah, just his like transformation into Billy Loomis is
Mhm.
more than I would have thought, not having seen The Craft and just seeing him completely not like a killer in a movie.
Yeah.
I'm like, he is riding so high on such a high level of like insanity, sociopathy, psychopathy, whatever you want to call it. He just how he's like Mickey, but like a little bit better, where he's like, embodying like all the rules, and he's the dark Randy, where he took the rules of the things and all these killers that did stuff in movies that he idolized. Like what's creepier, the no motive thing, but no, I actually have a motive, and just how sadistic he is against Nev. Richie and Billy are both very like linked in the way that they are towards their girlfriend, stuff like that. But Billy's just so sadistic, and just like everything with leading up to it, I just think is so incredible with him. Just like we all go a little mad sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes.
Anthony Perkins, Psycho. He's so incredible, and just like the whole thing between him and Stu, just like stabbing each other. Don't go too deep. Damn it, Stu. Stuff like that. It's just like it's perfect. Anyways, we all love the third act of Scream. But,
Kerri, your number two?
Billy's my number one.
That's what I thought. I thought you were going to
wait.
Yeah, I think like Chad said, you've been keeping track. My 1 and 2 is Billy and Stu. For me, Billy just edges out Stu because Billy is like, the driving killer in that movie. He's the dominant killer. And he has kind of more of a motivation, right? He's like, killing Sid. Partially it's kind of revenge for, his mom leaving him, but also, it's kind of like, oh, well, what is our motive? And also that Sydney won't, give it up to him.
Well, she did.
Yep. I gotta die. Them's the rules.
Because I just think like both killers in this movie, it's like so perfectly structured, and you go back and watch it, and I think especially things like that fountain scene, and you go back and you listen to the dialogue.
Live her alone.
Between Stuart and Billy, and they're basically like kind of revealing that they're the killers, and like it's just so interesting. It's always so interesting on a rewatch. I just love, especially with Billy, how when you watch this movie for the first time, you really do roll him out when he gets stabbed, because he's gotten stabbed and it can't be him. So even though you've been kind of suspecting him maybe the whole time, and like you realize with Sydney, like, oh, maybe even after she slept with him, maybe it was him, because he could have made a phone call from jail, and like maybe it was him, and I don't know. And I think Skeet Ulrich just acts this perfectly. That whole ending sequence between him and Stu is just fantastic and hilarious, and with Sidney Prescott, against them, it's just amazing, and it's so iconic. It's hard to. I think it is impossible to beat.
Was that what you want to talk about, Stu? Because you could just roll into your Stu thoughts if you have more.
I can roll into my Stu thoughts. And Stu is my number 2. And he's just a little bit lower for me than Billy, just because I feel like, I don't know, Billy's just kind of the stronger performance and killer. Matthew Lillard, it's so iconic, and it's so fantastic, like the lines he have, and how silly he is, and like he has I think obviously like some of the most quotable lines in the whole franchise. He's so fun, and I just put him a little bit lower because as a killer, like Billy is obviously like crazier and like,
I don't
know, like more sadistic, and Stu is kind of a little bit more like
dumber.
A follower.
The follower. But that's it. I mean, they're both just incredible.
Yeah, so Stu is my number 1 as well. I just think what he brings to this, what Matthew Lillard brings to this role is like not only quotable lines from the beginning, middle, and end, but a really great twist reveal. Because like Billy, it's like, okay, yeah, makes sense. There's one killer. What you don't expect is a second killer.
Yeah.
And when Stu comes in, you're like, oh my gosh, she's safe. And then he goes, surprise, Cindy. And you're like, no. And you're like, no, there's 2 killers. And Matthew Lillard just decides to go full like 12 out of 10. It's so good. Hey guys, she's no Sharon Stone.
Yeah.
She's not Sharon Stone. Them's the rules. You gotta die. The facial acting Matthew Lillard does, his eyes bulge out of his head through the entire third act, and it's amazing. And then even earlier on, you have great lines of like "live her alone," and then like he gets very sadistic when he's talking about how to gut somebody,
Yeah.
and it's really dark. And then he has great like movements, like when he finally gets the party going, he's like yes, and he's like dancing on the streets. So much just like greatness, like so many great lines that are still quotable to me. I think Stu is one of the best killers like in horror movie history.
I 100% agree with you. Obviously, Stu kind of always been my favorite ever since like Scream got me into horror.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is just the movie is so special and important to me, and just everything about it, including the two killers, and that's why I rank them 1 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And just when I have to decide between them, I go Stu for pretty much everything that you just said, Hunter. And it's just like, yeah, his facial acting, like he's like slobbering all over the place, and
Yeah,
like,
so much saliva, so much
so
saliva.
like overacting, but like not overacting. It's just like that character. That's who he is,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you see he is that way the whole movie, and he
Yeah.
just dials it up as soon as he's revealed to be the killer, and then you
Mm-hmm.
just see him in a completely different context, and he's just like he's dumb but he's funny. So he's the perfect like follower. And Kerri, and when Kerri was like, well, Billy's the crazier one, I'm like, they're both so crazy. And then Kerri
Yeah.
corrected and said more sadistic. I was like, yes, Billy's
Mm-hmm.
definitely more sadistic, but I think they're both so crazy, and they both show the different sides of crazy. And he's just so dumb crazy. And just like, why would
Yeah.
you believe that? And then he's still like, my mom and dad are going to be so mad at me. And you're just like, what? What? Of course they would. What are you talking
You
about?
hit me with a phone, Dick.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. And he thought that he was going to get away with it. And I don't know. He's just so dumb, but so funny, but so iconic, but just one of the best. And I've seen Matthew Lillard actually like, act like in The Descendants.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good actor just outside. He's not just Stu and Shaggy and all this other stuff you've seen him as.
Mm-hmm.
And I've even recently on a Rankum episode tried to get him on like an Oscar nominated list, because I just thought, I think people get so wrapped up in like, oh, what's silly.
Yeah.
That's why he's not like an Oscar performance. And I'm like, you people would rank, Jack Nicholson up here at
Yeah.
Shining, but Stu in the Scream, that's lowbrow. I'm
And
like,
they're both the same amount of crazy when you look
they're
at the
both the
movies.
same amount of crazy. They both like are really insane and sadistic the way they are, killing like his girlfriend and just all this stuff. And it's just like, I think because it's Jack Nicholson, they'll
He has
go,
more prestige than
he's up here, he's prestigious, and that's
yeah.
what you put in your mind. And I'm like, but Scream reinvented horror. Like, we don't get a lot of the movies we get today because of Scream. So then I'm like, just recontextualizing in my head, and I'm like, why can't he be like an Oscar performance? He's just so good. And I think Billy, like Skeet Ulrich and Matthew Lillard are just so great in that as just phenomenal horror performances.
Mm-hmm.
Just that whole, there's that scene, when Billy comes in and he does the turn, and we all go a little mad sometimes. And then as soon as she runs away and she runs right into Stu, it's like this hard body that she runs into, and then surprise, Sydney, and it's just such a great 1-2, like, oh my god, there's two of them. And
Yeah.
it's such a great moment in horror that I had to put them as 1 and 2. But just Stu just for me just makes that movie, and Billy is just the right under him. Like, they're just such a pair. They're 1-1 for me. But Stu
Yeah.
for me, just I love his lines. He's just so funny, and I would love to see him come back. They opened the door for it.
They did.
That time might be over. Let's see, maybe Radio Silence might be like, nope, this is the time. Scream 7, Stu's back. I don't know. We'll see.
All right. So, looking back at my top 5, it is funny how mine go like insane, like with like Amber and then Mickey back to back, and then like Richie and Billy side by side, like at 3 and 2. So it's like
Let's
they're kind of like paralleling each other.
well, let's face it. I mean, most scream killers are insane in some way.
Yeah,
So it's, and I think those are the best ones. So
Yeah.
there you go.
yeah. So let's go through our entire list, like from 13 to 1, and then we can do a full like overall ranking. Do you want
Sure.
to do that?
Go ahead. Go through yours.
All right, so my number 13 is Ethan Landry. Number 12, Charlie Walker. Number 11, Jason Carvey. 10, Gwen Bailey. 9, Roman Bridger. 8, Nancy Loomis. 7, Joe Roberts. 6, Wayne Bailey. 5, Amber Freeman. 4, Mickey Altieri. 3, Billy Loomis. 2, Richie Kirch. And 1, Stu Macher.
All right. All right. Well, Carrie's right, and I'll go through mine. I don't have full names on here. I'm just going to go 13 Charlie, 12 Ethan, 11 Quinn, 10 Jason, 9 Roman, 8 Richie, 7 Wayne, 6 Mickey, 5 Amber, 4 Mrs. Loomis, 3 Jill, 2 Billy, and 1 Stu.
Okay. And mine is 13 Jason, 12 Ethan, 11 Charlie, 10 Quinn, 9 Roman, 8 Detective Bailey, 7 Amber, 6 Mickey, 5 Richie, 4 Mrs. Loomis, 3 Jill, 2 Stu, and Billy 1.
I love how different our lists are.
Yeah.
Completely different.
Different and similar in some ways.
Yeah, I feel like
Similar
our
in some ways.
bottoms were kind of similar, and then as we got towards the top, it got a little bit more.
But I also feel like Carrie and I linked up a lot, and then at the very ends, me and Hunter like Stu #1.
Stu, 1, baby.
All right.
Gotta have a sequel.
So our overall ranking, I'm gonna start at 12 because we did have a tie. So at
Ooh.
number 12, it's Ethan Landry. At number 11, it's Charlie Walker.
Mhm.
At number 10, Jason Carvey. At number 9, Quinn Bailey. At number 8, Roman Bridger. At number 7, Detective Wayne Bailey.
Okay.
At number 6, Amber Freeman. At number 5, the 2 Scream 2 killers, Mickey Altieri and Mrs. Loomis.
Wow.
Yes.
At number 4, Richie Kirsch. At number 3, Jill Roberts. At number 2, Billy Loomis. And at number 1, Stu Macher.
It's a Scream, baby.
I love that Scream 5 is getting a lot more love when it comes to killer reveals in this one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
I think that's the strongest part of that movie is the killer stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah. All right. So that is our ranking, our overall ranking. We've been here for almost an hour and a half. Chad and Kerri, where do you find you online before we head out?
Just here, yeah.
As usual, check out my channel, Chadwick Webb. We do rankings over there. Check out my blog. I need to start posting stuff again, but Clear Eyes Full Heart Reviews.wordpress.com. And then check out Letterboxd, Chadwick Webb. Check out my other show that I do on the Dill Pickle Movie Network called Picture This. We do Oscar stuff. We watch Best Picture movies and we rank them and we talk about them, all that stuff. We did this month we did 2022, so the last Oscars, all 10 films. And then this next month in April we're going to do 1990 because we're finishing up our Godfather series with Godfather Part 3. It's also the year I was born, so we're probably going to celebrate that. And I don't think there's anything else I have to plug. No, that's it.
All right, guys. If you did enjoy this episode, hit the like button, subscribe to Nerd Entertainment Network down below. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys soon.